Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a message that I received, and it reads like this. How are you, Brother Nashim? I kindly request that you post my story here, but please keep me as anonymous and do not share my profile with anyone. So the story is that every time when I go to sell my body as a prostitute, I end up meeting with a ghost, a man that will book me for a hookup date, and after sleeping with me, he gives me money. At the end of the night, when I look for that money, it would have gone missing. The man as well would have gone missing. I am a 28-year-old single mother who is currently living here in South Africa. I want to confess that I work as a sex worker. That is my profession, and I am not ashamed of it because it is exactly what puts food on the table for my family. When I came here, I started to face a lot of problems in terms of documentation and to look for a job. God had granted me a good job. I was working in this other gated community, and then the systems, they changed after one maid had stolen from this other property. The only thing that they stole, it was a TV, just a normal TV, and they messed up everything for other people that were also working in that same gated community. There were people that were from Mozambique, Lesotho, as well as those that were from Zim, mainly your gardeners, as well as your maids. So the story was that this maid, she was dating a guy that was a drug addict, and she loved that guy because she believed that this man, if he was going to marry her, then she will be able to get a marriage certificate, and then she can get a South African visa because the man, he was a South African. He used to stay in that same estate. We are talking about a man that was wealthy who also had a house in that same estate, but he was a drug addict. His wife had divorced him. I really do not know the story, how they ended up falling in love. But the guy, because he was a drug addict, he then manipulated that woman. She started to steal some items from the house where she was working, and the bosses, they did not realize that this was what was happening. She would steal jewelry, go and give it to that guy, and he would go and sell, and he will buy his drugs. And when she saw that all the things were finished, then when her bosses were at work, she then took the TV. She was seen on a CCTV footage as she was handing over this TV to that guy, and then she was arrested because of this thing that had happened. Then there was a new rule that those that were working in the estate, they were not even allowed to leave their houses alone where you were working to. You were not allowed to leave the gate of the house where you were working and staying. And if you were walking in the road, if you were alone, you could get arrested for trespassing. And this was not the only rule. They then made it such that anyone that was working in the estate was supposed to be verified if they had a South African ID or if they were a foreigner, to see if they had a work permit. Unfortunately, some of us, because of something that someone else had done, we ended up losing our jobs. That is another story that forced me into prostitution. I then became so desperate, and I said, it is far much better that I work using my own body. I am not stealing anyone's job. I'm just indoors and I sell my body. Before I had came to South Africa, my life was okay. But after I had divorced my husband, he became so cruel. He is that type of a baby daddy who says, if I do not sleep with you, then I cannot give you money to buy clothes for the kids. Unless if he sleeps with you first, then he can give you something to help you take care of the child. On my part, in Zim, I became unemployed, and I was left facing an incredible, difficult life. When I got married to my husband, he spoiled me, and he told me that he does not want a woman that works. He just wants me to become a housewife, to enjoy, watch Netflix, and not to do anything. Ladies, you need to get up, go to school, get educated, so that when divorce time comes, you have something better to do in your life. I had no one to leave my child with because I was raised by a stepmother who tried everything in her power to drive me out of the house. So when I got married back then, my stepmother, she was overjoyed that I was finally leaving her house. She said that I was even dating my father, which is something that was very painful for my dad because he loved me. He would never dare do such a thing with me. So I started to live my own life. My stepmom was focusing on her own life with her own children. When my husband in Zim abandoned me, I had nowhere to turn to, no one to cry to. Because of the extreme poverty, I joined sex work so that I'll be able to provide for my child. When I first entered sex work, I thought that it will be a temporary thing, but I ended up developing an addiction because it is fast money. Per day, you can make even 2,000 rands. Just sleeping maybe with 5 guys, you have already made so much money. I reached a point where I could no longer figure out any other way to earn money except through sex work. In this line of work, you end up doing absolutely anything just to make money. On a typical day, I would sleep with 10 or more men just to ensure I made a meaningful amount. To those that are going to be like, so you sleep with 8 men. It's like you ladies, when you go to a sleepover, how many rounds can you do with your boyfriend at night? Some of you can even go as far as 6 rounds. You have slept with 6 men in my situation, and I would have already made a lot of money. And when you go for a sleepover, when I'm talking about 6 rounds, this is a whole night thing. But when I am sleeping with these men, there is something that we call short time. So it is a quick game. I don't even consider it to be around. Most of these men, they will ejaculate within 5 minutes. So in about 3 hours, I would have already slept with 10 men and I will be done with them. I actually started this work when I was in Zim, where I used to go. In Zim, we call it touchline. Touchline is a street corner where men knows that if they go there, they will see women, those that are sex workers. When you are a sex worker, you cannot afford to stay in one location for too long because your market eventually dries up. So I was constantly shifting locations until I moved here to South Africa and I stopped becoming a prostitute and I started to work as a maid. Unfortunately, that had the lady, because of her love, she stole a TV and she got all of us fired from that gated community. Once I arrived in South Africa, I made a friend whom I met through our shared sex work. In this profession, you encounter a lot of challenges because you are sleeping with all kinds of different women, of people. Some of them, they are money rituals. They use rituals. When someone is doing rituals, the first person that they would go and test their charms on, it is a prostitute, because you are the one that can take money and have sex with a man. Sex work is not a profession for someone who is afraid of handling spiritual charms. Back when I was in Zim, I used to travel to different sangomas to strengthen and to boost my sex work business. When I arrived in South Africa, I did not know any local spiritual traditional healers to go to. So what I did was that I ended up searching for traditional healers on TikTok. That was when I came across one advertisement. This advertisement, it was coming from this other Sangoma on TikTok. He was originally from Mozambique, but he had been in South Africa where he was doing his work in South Africa. He stated that he was helping those that needed sandawanas, those that were involved in taxi businesses, those that had saloons, any type of businesses. He specifically mentioned that he was also, and he had already been helping those that would do sex work. My friend and I influenced each other to go and see this Sekuru because we wanted to spiritually fortify our work so we could make massive amounts of money and to become wealthy. And we only wanted to be booked by rich blessers, not these poor construction guys that will come with your 50 rand and then he tries to negotiate to sleep with you two rounds. on that same 50 rand. So we started to use those charms. We then decided to go to Mozambique. So we set off on our journey and then we went to Mozambique. Once we reached Mozambique, we spent an entire day. We were traveling through the water to reach this traditional healer. He lived close to the Zambezi River. This man, he shocked us because he had 40 wives and 150 children, all living together in a massive gathering that looked like an entire compound. When we arrived at his place, we explained the reason for our visit. He said that it was no problem at all, that he was fully capable of helping us. When we went there, we were under the impression that you just go, you collect your charms, then you return back within a single day. But things did not go that way at all. We ended up spending 7 days there because this Sangoma, he kept extending our stay. We eventually grew exhausted and desperately wanted to return home, even though he had not finalized everything for us. On the day that we intended to leave, he came to us and then he said, "You girls, you must sleep completely naked. I will come to you, and because you have stayed here for a long time, I want you to go back so that you can start working. Tonight, you must sleep completely naked. Do not wear anything." So we went to sleep completely naked, just as this Sekuru had instructed us to do. In the middle of the night, whilst we were sleeping inside the tent, he woke us up and he said, "Girls, get up, let us go." We got up, we were still completely naked by then, and then he walked us straight to the cemetery. It was so scary going to the cemetery. You were naked. We were scared that if we were going to get caught, then what was going to happen to us? Maybe the locals, they were going to beat us up, thinking that maybe we were witches. Once we were at the graveyard, we performed various rituals with this Ekurum. When we finished, he then said to us, "Right, girls, now we are preparing to leave. I want each and every one of you to scoop up some soil from here at the graves, but make absolutely sure that no one fails to grab this soil, because if you fail to scoop it, whatever you will encounter as a result, it is entirely upon you." On my part, I failed to successfully scoop up the actual graveyard soil. Mine spilled and got lost. So I just grabbed some random dirt from nearby to try and to deceive Sekorum because I was desperate to finish and get back to work. When we returned back to this Sangoma's house, he performed the final stages of the rituals on us, which included cutting small ritual incisions on our bodies. He was using a razor blade to cut us in between our thighs so that any man that is going to enter in between my thigh will always be addicted to me. When we were completely finished, we exited through Tanzania, traveling through the water, because he said to us, when you are going back to work, whether in Zim or in South Africa, travel through the water. You must not return using the same route that you came from. You must take a different way so that you do not encounter any tokoloshes and spiritual obstacles that will follow you going back with you to where you are going to work. We spent 2 days traveling, and he had said to us that we should never make any mistake to have sex along the way, even with anyone, until we would have reached the place where we consider our working place, which was South Africa. We finally arrived back in Johannesburg. That was when my friend's circumstances completely transformed. She began making a massive amount of money, but as for me, things immediately began to reject me. I was hit by severe bad luck to the extent that I could not find a single client who wanted me. This began to deeply distress me. Whenever I asked my friend, she would tell me that her things were working perfectly and she was making serious money. Desperate, I began mixing different types of traditional charms, seeking out various other healers. Because of this, I became a person who was terrified of even standing out, just going to sell my body because I was constantly getting into conflicts with other sex workers for absolutely no reason at all, and I would even get beaten up. Then one day, I was sitting all by myself in a corner inside a nightclub. A young man, this man, he came into that same club. He walked straight to the counter. He then bought alcohol for himself. On his way back, he walked directly to where I was sitting. He started to talk to me. He said, "Why is a beautiful girl like you sitting all alone whilst everyone is enjoying themselves?" I told him that all the girls here, they hate me. I don't even know what I did to offend them or why they hate me. That is why I'm just here in the corner. They do not even want me to come anywhere near them. The young man then said to me, "If you want, we can go and we can enjoy. But do you want beer?" I said yes. He went and he bought a six-pack of ciders. We started drinking, chatting. Around 11 p.m., the young man then said, "I want to take you out for the night. How much do you want?" I charged him. We left the bar. We went to this other booking house where we slept and we enjoyed each other's company. The following morning, I woke up. I was completely alone in the room, but right on the top of the headboard drawer, there was a stack of money that had been placed there. When I saw this money, I thought to myself, finally, my luck has turned. I decided that I wanted to flee back to Zim. I wanted to use the route through Botswana so I could re-enter through the plum tree border post, as I intended to buy some winter stock so as to sell from Botswana. Then I go to Zim. I then went and I got on a bus going to Gaborone. Once inside that bus, I was sitting close to this other woman. We started talking, and then she said to me that she had this ring. It was a gold ring that she was selling. She said, "Just give me whatever money that you have." I was so stupid, Brother Nashi. That money that I had stolen from that guy who had booked me the previous night, I then used this money and I gave it to that woman because I thought that I had robbed this lady, thinking that I was going to sell this ring to the Nigerians and make double the profit. I then got off from the bus, even left my bag, returned back to Joburg, and I went to these other Nigerians that I knew. The moment that he held that ring, he started laughing and he said that this is fake gold. It is brass that has been coated on top of a steel ring. And he said, "This is worthless." And he just dropped it into a refuse bin. I started to cry because all of that money, it was gone. Ever since this thing has happened, when I go to a club, I am even afraid because I will be picked up by a man at night. Then I wake up at the cemetery. So far, I have woken up at a graveyard 5 different times out of nowhere. Life has become too hard for me. Brother, there are many times when I am thinking about ending my own life. I wish that I could go back to that same Sangoma, but he has since banned me from ever visiting him because he knew that when I returned back to South Africa, I started to mix his charms with the other charms that I was getting from different types of traditional healers. I am just warning other girls, especially those that are in sex work. If you are doing sex work, please never use charms. If you are doing it, just do it, but don't use any charms. You'll end up regretting it. Right now, I get so scared, but still I have to continue working as a sex worker because back home I have others that look up to me so that I can send them money each and every month, and there are those that will be waiting for me to send them money. And if I do not send money, I know that those that are closest to me, they will suffer a lot. When you post my story, please tell me. I'll be following through in the comment section. Yo, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to us by one of our dear sister. Let us try to speak with our sister in the comment section. If you have ever been picked up by a man that you thought was a ghost, you can come to my inbox and then you share with us your own side of the story. strange things indeed they do happen in this world. I'll be back very soon with another episode.